Hey there, until now this program has been sleeping here. I haven't still covered this because I've been explaining more basic things that you need to know before understanding this. In this lecture though, we're going to see the first line here and explain what this does. Because in this lecture I'm going to talk about Python lists, and this thing in here is actually a Python list. So lists are data types, or data objects, if you like, just like strings and numbers. The difference is that strings and numbers are more simple data types than lists. Lists are more compound data types that may contain several strings or numbers inside them. So in other words, the definition of a list is a data type that contains multiple items. The syntax to create a list is to start with an opening square bracket, and then you start writing the items of the list. And each item, for example, the first item is a string, and then the first item is divided by the second item using a comma. And then you have a comma again, and then until the last item, and there is no comma after that. And then you have the closing bracket. Now let me exit this Python session. Make sure you are in the basics folder and execute the basics.py file. You see that we get flat floor street 18. So where is this coming from? Well, it's coming from this print function in here. The print function is basically printing out the first item of the list, which is flat floor street, this one here, and the second item of the list. So what are these zeros and ones? Well, let me Ctrl+C here to close this and start a Python session, interactive session again. Double click here, Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V here to paste that line. So address 0 will return the first item of the list. That's because list items have indexes. So each of the list items has an index, and it starts from 0. The very first item of the list has an index of 0. The second item has an index of 1, and the last item has an index of 2. If you pass 3 there, you'll get an error which says that index error, list index out of range. So basically the list doesn't have an item with index 3. You can check the length of a list using the len function, just as you did with strings. And now it's time to know that even strings have this indexing system. So 0 will get you age, 1 will get you E, etc. Even if you have spaces like that, so the space would be item with index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you do 5 here, you'll see that you'll get a white space here. Ctrl+L to clear that, and let's stop at this line here. We covered the print function earlier, and you saw that the print function took one input, but it can also take more than 2 inputs, like hi, and you see that it prints out hello hi. And so these inputs, actually they are called arguments technically. These arguments have to be divided by comma, as you see there. So the same we have in here in this print function. So up to this point, what the program is doing is, because Python starts executing a script from top to bottom. So it starts with the first line. You are creating a variable. It stores a variable in the memory, and in that variable it stores this list. It doesn't output anything because you don't have any function that you're not saying print this out or do this or do that. You are just storing a variable in the memory. Then you store another variable, which we're going to cover later. And here is where you have a function that you tell Python to do something, to do an action with some data. So this is the function that is printing out flat floor street 18, the first two items of that list. So that's about lists. In the next lecture, I am going to teach you some few more tricks about lists, and then we're going to cover this line in here, which is a dictionary. But first, let's go through the next lecture. See you there.